Today's episode is brought to you by the Hippocratic Collective. Check out our shows and join the conversation at thehippocratic-collective.com. Hello, I'm Joan. I'm a Canadian family physician who also works as a restorative medical educator, facilitator, and coach. I create spaces that rehumanize the work of healthcare. I'm creating this podcast to remind myself, as well as anyone else working in a helping profession, that when you are working and caring for your human patients, you are the other human in the room. Before we jump into this week's episode, I want to remind you that Creating Space, my coaching course and retreat, is open for registration and enrollment now. I am so excited that folks are signing up for spending 6 months with me online and then 4 days with me in person at a spa retreat later on this year. And I want you to be in there. So head to joanchanmd.com/space and book a call with me. You get to chat with me by phone, learn if this program is right for you. So head to joanchanmd.com/space. I can't wait to talk to you and invite you into Creating Space. All right. Well, hello there, healthcare humans. Thank you so much for coming back for another episode of The Other Human in the Room. The internet and digital demons tried to stop this conversation, but we persevered, and I'm so glad because I've been so looking forward to this particular conversation with the healthcare human I have sitting in front of me across the internet airwaves. So would you like to introduce yourself to everyone?
Yes. Nyawa for inviting me today. Sego Sewagwego. Hello, everyone. Karenna'onwe Karen Hill. Dr. Karen Hill is my English name. I am Mohawk Turtle Clan from Six Nations of the Grand River Territory, and I am a family doctor, and I'm on faculty with Joan at McMaster, and I'm glad to be here.
Yes.
Mhm.
And how do you prefer to be called in terms of which name do you most enjoy people calling you?
Well, I started using we call Ongohoe, my original name.
Mm,
So I really do like people to call me by that if they can pronounce it. If not, they
right.
can say Karen.
Hmm.
That's fine. Yeah,
So either one.
either
So
one.
okay. And how do you pronounce your original name? Just
It's
for those who
pronounced, yeah, it's pronounced Karenna'onwe.
Karenna'onwe.
Yes.
Yes.
Means original song. Karana is song and the Unwe is like original. Like we call ourselves Ungwehonwe, which is the
Mm.
original people.
Mm.
That means like original song or like song from the creator. Mm.
Mm. Do you enjoy singing yourself?
Oh yes. I love singing.
Excellent. So
Yeah,
that works out as well, that you
it
get
works
to
out.
embody your name so beautifully.
It does. It does.
Yay.
And actually, I was thinking about my name just the other night. I don't know why I was thinking about it. I ponder things often.
Mm.
And I was like, that's funny that I have that name because I think it's really everybody's name,
Oh,
right?
love
Like I
that.
thought it's everybody's name. We are all an original song in our own way, in our own gifting, in our own journey. It's all of us. And I don't know why I was thinking about that, but it just the other night I was thinking about my name and that's what came to me. And I was like, wow,
I
the
love
only one.
that. Yes. I also love
Yeah.
a ponder, so I love meeting
Yes,
other ponderous people.
yes, yeah.
So I will say, like we were saying before we started recording, I think the main thing I'd love to talk to you about is um, this concept that I first heard from you, which is the concept of two row medicine, and I know that's also the name of a podcast that you started and are offering to others.
Yeah.
So I want to spend the majority of the time just thinking about that and hearing more about that. But I'd love for those that are listening who don't know you to get to know you a bit as well.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, what would you like to share about your origin story and in particular how you found your way into medicine? Was that something that you always knew you wanted to do from the moment you opened your eyes, or it was
Yeah.
that something that came upon you later in your life?
Hmm. Oh my goodness. I could talk for an hour just about that, but
Yeah, it's a tricky question.
right, it's a lot. Um, but no, I mean, I didn't always want to be a doctor. When I was a kid, people would say, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I
Yeah.
would be like, anything but a nurse or a doctor. That's what I used to say, you know. And
I
when
actually I used to say that because I come from two physicians, so I was like anything from a doctor. So just the irony of here we are, right?
right here we are, I was like, anything but that. And I don't know, I think that I had that feeling because my mother was born with spina bifida, and she struggled with the medical community her entire life, right?
Yeah.
Always being told you're not going to live, you won't become an adult, you won't have children, you'll never walk, just all of these things. And so I would always say that anything but a nurse or a doctor.
Mm.
But lo and behold, I ended up in a summer youth employment program when I was 15. And the job that I got was in a hospital. And while I was in that hospital, really doing like nurse's aide kind of work, I met residents there. And
Mm.
these residents would talk to us every day. And it didn't hurt that they were young, good-looking men, right?
Sure.
So we were like always talking to them, me and the two other girls I was working with. And I thought, you know what, I could do this because I was on a rehab unit. I just really liked working with the people, seeing that they were coming from all different backgrounds. It was a stroke and spinal cord and brain injury. And I thought, yeah, I could do that. And then I could be a doctor, and I think I could do a good job. I'm smart enough. And then I would say my extracurricular activities led me to be a parent by the time I was 17.
Mm.
And so I sort of switched my direct trajectory, and I ended up going into, it was called the RNA program at that time. It was in the early 80s. So I did that, which is now their RPNs, right?
Mhm.
So I did that instead. And I did work in psychiatry and I worked in rehab. And then there came a point in time where I started to work in education here in my own community at Six Nations. And I was 30 by that time. And I was working on my undergraduate degree and I finished that. And then I came across a box in my office, and I had moved offices several times, but this box always followed me. And I was like, what is in this box? Right? Why does it keep following me? So I opened the box and I started going through it. And there was a white envelope in there. And I remember grabbing this white envelope and just feeling a shock go up my arms. And I was like, oh. And it was the Ontario Medical School application envelope. And I had totally forgotten that there was a time that I wanted to be a doctor. It was
Wow.
totally gone from my thinking.
Mm.
And in that instant, it just all came back. And it was at a time when we had been doing a lot of focus groups in our community to ask about curriculum. We were in a brand new post-secondary institution governed, led by the Indigenous people in our community at Six Nations. And we were doing a lot of focus groups asking. And one of the things that kept coming up were all of these health related topics. And I started thinking, why would you want us to teach like taking care of your diabetes and drinking and driving and all of these things when what is the health system doing?
Mm. Mhm.
Right. And I had been doing a little bit of research into sort of the quote unquote healthcare system in First Nations communities in Canada, only to realize that there's no such thing, right?
Yeah.
There's just not. Not in the way that Canadians enjoy primary care and healthcare. And that's when I had found that application. So I took the application home, and in secret, when my husband was gone away to work and he worked out of town, um, kids were asleep, and I went through the application and it was all on paper, pulled out all my transcripts and did all the calculations. And I was like, oh my goodness, I actually meet the admission criteria to get into med school. And so I called my husband the next day and I told him, I said, I'm applying to go to med school. And he just said, oh, okay. And I don't think he thought I was like gonna either I was really gonna do it or that I was
Yeah.
gonna win, right? But yeah, I applied and I went to med school. I came to med school. But I was so naive. I didn't even know that there was such a thing as a residency. I didn't
Mm,
know. Like I hadn't really looked into anything. I just knew I knew I had this desire, and I knew that this was like, to me, it was like divine intervention, right?
wow.
It was like, it's time. The time is here. You just finished your undergrad. You meet the criteria. It's time for you to do this next thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I got goosebumps. That's so, isn't it just incredible how things unfold and you couldn't
Yes.
predict. And they're better than you could have predicted, really,
Yeah.
in the end. So then what was it like then, especially having had this understandably not positive view of the healthcare system, both through how your mom was impacted by it and then also looking into it yourself and realizing disparity almost doesn't seem like a big enough word, in terms of the differences. And then now you're entering medical training. And that can be, well, I don't know. What was that like for you?
Yeah. Well, one of the good things I like I can look back at my life and see why everything happened the way it happened, right?
Mm,
So I told you I had been working at this brand new post-secondary institution here at Six Nations, one of the first, Indigenous governed, Indigenous led post-secondary institutions in the country. And we were doing all of these focus group meetings. So I had an opportunity to get to know a lot of our knowledge keepers, our chiefs, our clan mothers, who we were calling on to come and talk to us about the cultural component of what we were going to teach, right? Because there are some things that are left to be sacred
mm,
and that people need to just experience and seek out for themselves.
yeah.
But then there are things that we needed to bring into the curriculum because of the loss, of the connection and knowledge due to the whole residential school era, right?
Yeah.
So we really wanted guidance in that. So I actually had an opportunity to hear many, many people and um, solidify some of the teachings I had as a child from my own grandparents, my grandfather. And in those teachings, they were very clear and I heard it over and over and over again that we need healing. We need
Mm,
opportunities for healing. And this is how within the education system it looks,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And this is what we need. And so when I came into medical school, I came with an understanding that what we needed was healing
Hmm.
alongside of the healthcare system because the healthcare system is very specific.
Yeah.
It's deficit oriented, disease specific, problem solution, right? It's a very different framing. And our people need that because we have, the statistics show higher burden of chronic illness and, mental health issues. So we need that model, but alongside of it, we need this healing. And so when I went into med school, that became glaringly evident is that, okay, I'm learning about I'm learning about healthcare. There is nothing healing in this place.
Mm,
There is
yes.
nothing healing in this place. And so at the same time I was going through medical school, I stayed connected to people in the community. There was one elder in specifically Marge Henry Gahan. And we say Gahan when somebody's passed now,
Mhm.
um, who I just would always go to. And she would like pick me up and dust me off and send me back to medical school, right?
Wow.
Because it was a stress for me.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think that for all Indigenous people or many Indigenous people, that's the difficulty in education and in post-secondary education. It's what we know is not there.
Yes.
So it's almost like you have to shut this part of yourself off while you're picking this up.
Yeah.
And then as you're picking this up, you're trying to make this translation
Uh,
constantly throughout your whole curriculum, right? So it's very it's heavy. It's
mhm.
very heavy. And things in the curriculum at that time such as we were being taught in infectious disease that being Indigenous was a risk factor for things like
Oh
tuberculosis.
no.
And I was like, I kind of don't think so.
Right.
And I remember getting into a bit of an argument with Dr. Penny at the time. He was our infectious disease guru at McMaster about that, because I said, I grew up, my family traveled. They were farm workers and service workers, and my dad hated the winter. So we went to Palm Beach every winter, right? And I
Yeah.
said, we got, us swimming in Lake Worth with, you know, movie stars, right? I said, so we were poor, but I said, so is my risk factor for contracting tuberculosis the same as a person who's living in a northern community where 20
Exactly.
people are sharing a two-bedroom house?
Yeah.
Is it the same? And I just remember him looking at me and going, Palm Beach? Like that's what he got out of our conversation. I said, we were the hired help. The world is as it should be.
Mm.
My question is
You're like, don't panic. And so,
don't panic, right? It's like,
yeah.
don't panic.
Oh dear.
My question is my risk factor the
Yeah.
same? And he said, no. I said, then you have to stop teaching students that being Indigenous is a risk factor.
Yeah.
We have to stop teaching it that way,
Oh,
right? And I remember
wow.
it was just like, point taken. Right. But
Right.
those were the things that would just like I was like, oh my goodness. Right. Or there was a research project on diabetes done at Sandy Lake, and they came and they presented to all of us in our class. And their findings were that we have a thrifty gene. That's why Indigenous people have diabetes. We've got
What?
it's a genetic problem. We have a thrifty gene, they called it. I'm
Thrifty.
try- thrifty, thrifty gene. That's what they called it. And I got up and I left. I thought, I'm leaving. I can't even sit here through this groundbreaking research the way that they were presenting it, right?
Oh
But
no.
those were the kinds of things that made it difficult, right?
Yeah.
And then, hearing like the administrators and stuff talking about, well, if we allow more Indigenous people in, they're just going to struggle with the curriculum. I'm like, the struggle is not an intellectual struggle. Like, it's
Yeah.
not, my brain power is not, I'm not able. That's not the struggle. The struggle is very different than that, right?
Oh yeah.
So, as soon as I started medical school, I started to do things to change those things. One was the application process for medical school because, like myself, I have two sons, five stepdaughters. I was married when I went to school. I had a 3.7 GPA. But if I had parents cooking and cleaning for me and doing my laundry,
Yeah.
what would that 3.7 be?
Yeah.
Right? So we said, okay, if our students are coming and they're carrying all these responsibilities in community and they have a 3.0, which is the cutoff, or a 3.2, what really is that?
Mm-hmm.
Is it really something different because they've achieved that while doing,
Yeah.
all of these other things, right? So I just started to work at doing those things, looking at admissions and, knowing that we needed more Indigenous people in the system. Because I think it's the same as like rural, right? Why do they bring people who live in rural communities or grown up there into medicine? Because they know they're likely to go back,
Yep.
right? And the same principle with Indigenous people or, other groups of people, I think, right? So I said, we need more. I was the fourth Indigenous graduate from McMaster University in 40 years.
Oh my goodness. Wow. I mean, that's
It
to
was,
have it be that statistic.
yeah, it was crazy. And one girl had graduated the year before me, and then like about 10 years before that, and then it was like 20 years before that or something like that. In that 40-year span,
Yeah.
were four of us.
Oof.
Mhm.
How was that for you? I mean, because medical school on its own is challenging in, cognitively, emotionally, physically. And then it sounds like you had a couple other full-time jobs, so mothering and, being a part of a thriving household, including young people. And
Mhm.
then now you're representative and advocate and doing this extracurricular work on top of that. Like that's a lot to hold all at once.
Mhm. Yeah, and like from my perspective and what I've been taught in my culture, like we don't talk about rights in the traditional
Mm,
way of living. There's no rights. It's about responsibilities,
mm, mm,
right? We have responsibilities to ourselves. Number one, to be the best human being that we can be,
mm.
right? Because we know that our perception is that we are medicine to each other,
Oh,
right?
that's beautiful. I love that.
And so that's our first responsibility. And then our responsibilities come to our family, and
Hmm.
then to our clan, and then to our community, and then to our nation, and then to the world. We have those responsibilities. So, in that context, what I did was nothing outside of what my responsibilities were,
Mm,
right? So, maybe if I was not an Indigenous person or somebody who had different teachings,
yes.
about it may have felt more burdensome. Do you know what I'm
Mm,
saying?
yes,
If I
absolutely.
came in thinking, well, I just got to get through med school and I got to be able to work out every day at 8 a.m. and, you know,
Yes.
do all these things but for me, it didn't, I didn't sort of feel like that. It got heavy because of the pushback,
Ugh. Yeah.
right? The pushback is what made it really heavy. Um, because I was still a bit naive and thinking, oh, well, all I got to do is like illuminate the situation and people will be like, oh, okay.
Yes, whenever someone's like, all we need is education, like if people knew, then they would do differently.
Yeah,
That would be nice if that was true, but it is a different road than that we're
it's a
walking on.
different road. It requires like a transformation here and here in
Yeah.
people that, don't have that understanding, right? There really
Yeah.
is a change that has to happen for them to be like, oh, okay, I understand this now. I get it, right?
Mm,
And I would always frame the work. I would say, we're not asking for anything that hasn't already been done. And I
mm.
remember them saying, well, what do you mean? I said, we've done this for women.
Right.
The time when there were no women in medicine,
Yeah.
and we had to pave that way and develop an understanding of who are women as opposed to men
Hmm.
and start to set some value there. We're still working on that too.
Oh yeah.
We're still working on that too, and that's okay, right?
Yeah.
But we have an example of how to do it. So let's, we can do it because yeah, I would find that people would be I often thought it was like I often thought it was pushback. But what I came to realize is that a lot of it was um fear,
Yeah.
like fear of the unknown,
Hmm.
and B, um and it was overwhelming.
Yes.
Right? And then
Absolutely.
it's like, how do we start? Like, how do we do this? And if
Yep.
we do that, then we got to do all these other millions of things, right?
Yeah.
And that's why, like, when I started to do work with the Department of Family Medicine, I recognized that conversations that were happening were the same conversations we were having, like in 1993 when I was
Mm,
working at Six Nations Polytechnic and coming to McMaster, who was the lead. They were the lead university. We had a consortium of universities that were accrediting what we were doing
mm.
until we got our own accreditation granting status, right? And all those times, like those conversations that we were having, they were still happening. And I was like, good gravy. It's like 2020,
Yeah.
still talking about the same things.
Mm,
So I had to take a step back, right? I really had to take a step back from that work and start asking what do we need? Um, and it was through like I had also been asked to create this curriculum for the Indigenous Health Learning Lodge at the same time. And it was during COVID. And so I was just using our Indigenous methodology.
mm.
And what I was doing was I was putting tobacco down and I was praying and I was walking in the bush every day. every
Mm.
day, sometimes twice a day. I would walk in the bush and I would just ask, what do we need? What is it that we need for this cultural safety training? Because I know it's more than going online and clicking some buttons and finishing a course.
Yeah.
We need. And what I was shown was I needed to change,
Uh,
right?
isn't that always the
It's always the thing,
darn
right?
it?
Never about the other person, right? It's like, but I needed to change because what
uh,
I was shown was like I was coming into the university,
mhm.
and then when I stepped through the doors, I'm acting like Dr. Hill, but I'm
Yep.
expecting them to know Karenna'onwe and her people,
Yes. That was
right?
actually the question that was forming in my mind as you were describing this all, because it sounds like you were really beautifully and deeply still connected to the rest of who you were.
Yeah.
And but then like you're saying, like to get through the tests and to pass the OSCEs, it's like, okay, tell me the script and
Hmm.
that. But my
Yeah.
curiosity was like that might be fine. It's almost like you're playing a game when you're doing it for a test and you're trying to
Mm-hmm.
pass. But now you're actually seeing patients. And
Hmm.
there's the you that you're supposed to be according to the medical training,
Hmm.
but then there's all the other knowledge you have and just who you are just more fully as a human. And it's
Hmm.
like, now how do I do this medical interaction?
Hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
So was it at first you tried to just be Dr. Karen Hill and, do your soap note and do your guideline, or I don't know, like how
Yeah.
did you find a way to weave that together?
Well, I was fortunate to be able to come back and work in my own community.
Mm,
And I just came at it as just as myself,
yeah.
right? And so, I'm grateful to my community. I'm grateful to my patients
Hmm.
because they just let me be myself, right? So I
Yes.
entered into my practice just everybody calls me Dr. Karen. So I just entered into my practice as Dr. Karen, and I just always sort of looked at what I learned in medical school is a toolbox.
Hmm.
It's a toolbox, and I'm just bringing that in.
Yeah.
And for me, um, I was able to very early before I even started practicing. I was not quite finished. No, I was actually starting my practice, but I was working on developing the family health team for Six Nations. And a group of the traditional medicine people came forward and asked to meet with me. And I met with them. I didn't really know who they were, but when I met with them, there was a few of them that I did know. I was like, well, I didn't know you were a medicine person.
Mm, cool.
But they said, we want to work with the system now. We're ready, but we
Mm.
want to do it through you. And actually, the first thing that Christine Sky Gaha said to me is, we've been watching you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they were paying attention, right?
Mm.
They were paying attention. And so that everything switched for me in terms of my clinical practice. So I was able to just step into that. I actually started learning traditional medicines. It was like my second medical school started, right? I spent a lot of
Mm.
time learning about the medicines, learning the language, doing that work. So in my clinical practice, everything was there. But when COVID hit and our full-time clinical practice closed and I started working more with the university, then that's when I was told this, like that I have to change while I'm in that space,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so that's when I approached the Department of Family Medicine and I said I need to work differently. And that's when I brought this two row wampum with me, the two-row
Yes.
wampum belt, right? And I said, and I just talked about the two-row and what it meant and how I saw that that's what was missing. What was missing is the relationship.
Mm.
Because for all of these years, we've been trying to, well, what policies do we need? What courses do we need? What are the procedures for that? What, you know, what do we need to do for research? It was always very extractive,
Oof. Yeah.
right? Like,
Hmm.
I remember getting this email and there was like this 700-page document. And they were like, Dr. Hill, can you read this document, specifically focus on page, 150 to 225, and give us some feedback from an Indigenous perspective on how we can approach these things in research. And we have to have this done by Monday morning. So if you could get it back to us for Friday, that would be
No.
great, right? And I was like, oh my goodness. I just replied, I said, no, no, thank you.
Yes.
Right.
Applause. Yeah.
But I had been doing that for a long time. And
Mhm.
so have other Indigenous people. That's how we've been that's working with Indigenous people, right? That's what's been termed. And we're
Yeah.
like, I'm sorry, I can't do that, but I'm so thankful that you're thinking about us. I'm
Mm.
so thankful that we are on your mind. And
Yeah.
what I will ask you to do is just put a placeholder in there. And
Mm.
I gave them a paragraph and I said, just say this,
Mm.
that right now we are just developing our relationship with our local Indigenous people.
Mm.
And we're working on creating a fulsome, you know, voice here in this research document. And it's okay if it takes us a year or 2 years or 3 years because there's been nothing up till now. So we
Yeah.
wait. And so when I took this two row in and I talked about it, and then I had some people come to the community. Tracy Carr came, some other people in the education circle came. And I just said, I showed them the two row and I talked about how this two row represents the relationship between us specifically here as Haudenosaunee people and newcomers. We were entering into these relationships with the Dutch, with the English, with the French, but then that fizzled away. And now here we are. And we're still carrying this two row relationship on our own. And we keep saying, who wants to enter into this relationship
Mm.
with us?
Mm.
And I said, that's what I'm asking. That's what I'm asking. I'm asking if the Department of Family Medicine is ready and willing to step into this kind of a relationship with my people through me,
Mm.
right? Are you ready to do this? Because it requires us to carry these principles that are held in the white lines, right? The purple lines represent each of us, and
Yep.
the white lines represent those their spiritual principles, really. And we say skana, gasastansara, and gatnigurio, which are peace, power, and a good mind.
Mm.
That each one of us, right? We're all responsible for our own peace. We are all responsible for our own power. We have energy,
Yeah.
right? And we're all responsible for our own good mind. And for us, that means connecting with our higher power,
Mm.
connecting with Creator, God, Jesus, whatever you want to call that, right? To ensure that our mind is clear so that what is manifesting in our lives is positive and good for all of us, right?
Yeah.
And they say that those two purple lines are like the ships that contain each culture.
Yeah.
And those white lines are the water that we're floating in.
Mm.
And so that's why we all have a responsibility to maintain those waters so that things are peaceful for both sides, right?
Yeah.
And I remember I was holding it through this whole meeting and then I went like this and I handed it to Tracy and she accepted it.
Mm.
And then we passed it around. And that's really all we've done since then is just work on the relationship, work
Yeah.
on the relationship. And out of working on that relationship, then, within the Department of Family Medicine, it's become very clear where, someone will say, wow, I don't think that this is going to work anymore, the way that we used to do this
Mm. Mm-hmm.
because it's not good for this relationship.
Yep.
Then they go about doing the work that they need to do as opposed to saying, okay, here's the 700-page document, Dr. Hill, you change it. It's not my job to change the ship,
Yep.
right? It's my job to be Karenna'onwe. And that was
You're on
the
your ship.
I'm in my canoe, right?
Yeah.
And that's what was told to me when I was out walking in the bush. I need to change, meaning I need to stop. I need to stop leaving myself at the door.
Yeah.
as I go into these spaces.
Oh my
And I
gosh.
need to just bring myself in fully, right? The second thing that I was told was that colonization has impacted all of us,
Mm,
right?
hmm.
There's so many people, especially in the academy, that stand with the mask of whatever their title is or whatever their letters are,
Yeah.
right? Um, and I remember saying that to Kathy and Tracy and saying, I don't want to work with the chair and I don't want to work with the executive director. I
Yes.
want to work with Kathy and Tracy.
Yeah.
And maybe when we work together and we get to know each other, we can use our letters and our titles to do what we need to do to support this relationship. That's what I want to do. Right.
Mm.
And they were like, oh, I get that. That's awesome. Let's do that. Let's do that. Right.
Yes. Let's do
Right. Let's
that.
do that because it's the other person in the room, right?
It's the other person. Yes.
Yeah, it's the other person.
Mm.
And we're all the other person for other people and vice versa,
Yeah.
right? And it's okay that we're not the same. It's
Thank
actually more
goodness.
beautiful that we're not, right?
Yes. Would be
It's
pretty
actually,
creepy.
it would be pretty weird, right? But yeah, it's amazing. It's been amazing. And I'm so grateful that, um, the leadership there at the Department of Family Medicine has been so open to
Hmm.
doing this and willing. And they were like, I remember early on, they were like, well, we're just afraid that, we may offend somebody. I said, you know what? You will get over
For
it.
sure. Yeah.
Right? It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right? But you have to trust that if you say something that is a little bit offensive, and I say something, I'll tell you, I'll say, well, that didn't really feel great. I'm
Mm.
not going to beat you up. And
Yeah.
same with vice versa. If I say something that you're like, oh, that's kind of like, I don't know, you can just say, I'm not really sure about that. It doesn't sit right with me. Because
Yeah.
then we can have the conversation. That's what we need, the conversation
Yeah.
to sort that out, right? Sort what is the discomfort? What is it that where can we find a space that everybody's feeling comfortable, right?
Yeah. Oh, and I just hear how, like, so the way in which you do that is using those three spiritual principles that you talked about. Because that's where, if we don't think we're in charge of our own power, our own peace, our own clear mind, we think then that's like where all the conflict avoidance stuff comes in, where you're like,
Yes.
if someone's angry, the conversation's over versus like,
Yeah.
oh, someone feels hurt, someone feels angry. And each of us is still in charge of our own peace. And right. And so like, okay, so if I need to take a beat away
Yeah.
and clear my mind or find my peace and then come back, but the relationship's not over.
No,
We're okay. You're
we
over
are
there. I'm over
okay.
here.
Yeah, we're okay. We're all okay,
We're all
right?
okay.
We're all okay. And we can handle the emotions, right? It really puts us in a position of being able to handle difficult emotions,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, I feel like, and I mean, I don't think there's enough that we need to say that as many ways as possible and really seep that into the foundations and curriculum of, I mean, being a human.
Yeah.
And certainly medical culture and
Yep.
medical education has a very fascinating relationship with difficult emotion. Considering we do know that what it is physiological changes in our body.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's going on. And that's
Yeah.
all, actually. It's okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yet, I don't know about you, but I've certainly, and I mean, I feel like I was very much socialized to be emotion phobic and emotion fearful. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's been very liberating to learn how to embrace and sit with difficult emotion. And I think that's what's really allowed me to practice my version of staying in my row and then allowing people to be in their row versus that
Yep.
more enmeshed or codependent or whatever term you want to use that can
Yeah.
happen when we don't realize
Mm-hmm.
we're in better relationship when we actually are
Mm-hmm.
in parallel to each other.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think that personally, I think that that's what colonization to me has done,
Yes.
right? It's that it's taken that mm, it's eroded like our ability to be in our own space and not feel either we're responsible for somebody else's emotions or they're responsible for ours, right?
Yep.
And it's just because we've had to leave those parts of ourselves at the door. Leave your emotions there. There's no place for that at work, right? All of
Yeah.
these things that we kind of grew up with and that structures and institutions are built around, even in medicine, this sort of always remaining objective. Like, what does that mean?
What does that mean? What
What
does
does that mean,
that mean?
right?
Objective according to who, which therefore makes it subjective, right?
Right?
Like
I'm always thinking that,
immediately.
like, what does that mean?
Oh,
So, but people take that to the nth degree.
yeah.
Right? That total, there's distance between us, as those two purple lines show, but there's not a removal of
No,
your energy. There's
no.
a maintenance of your positive energy in the space that
Yes.
allows that person the freedom to express what they need to express, right?
Mm, I love that so much. I actually, it
Mhm.
connects back to I had a curiosity about because something that I still notice lives in me, though I'm doing work to release, but it literally feels like a conditioned response, is this fear, stigma, shame, judgment around what gets to count as medicine. And often we put it under the label evidence-based medicine, which to be clear, I think it's great that science helps us prove what works and doesn't work. I'm very for that. And there's a way that like evidence-based medicine can lead to things that probably I have no idea what kind of evidence they don't do or don't have, but things get called alternative, things get like traditional ways of healing
Mhm.
through the colonization, white supremacy of it all can get really put in a category that can mean it's like taboo to speak of practicing
Mhm.
in those ways as well. I hope I'm describing this in a way that feels
Mhm.
okay to you because I really feel how sometimes it's like, you know, if you're a doctor, then you can't XYZ or, that means that you're no longer in the club, if you will, if you're also, say, offering traditional healing practices or whatever the case may be. I'm curious if you felt that discomfort in yourself or what kind of conversations have come up related to that
Mhm.
stigma.
Yeah. Well, I recognize that there is a stigma of that in the medical world for sure, but I've never really, I don't know, I've never really let that stop me,
Yeah.
right? I've never really let that in, like into my being,
Yeah.
right? I know that it's there. I know that it's going to try to push on me, um, but I've always been able to keep my place um, because like as an Indigenous woman, our ways of healing and medicine have been around way longer
Mm,
than Western medicine. And we have our own evidence. The
mm.
evidence is that all of our knowledge keepers and elders still use this medicine for thousands of years because it works, right?
Otherwise, those people would no longer be alive. I mean, they
Right?
passed
Or
away,
they would
obviously, but
not.
like, yeah.
Yeah. Or they wouldn't be using it,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And where it's an oral tradition. So when you learn, that's what you learn, right? Like Alva says, my mom used to use this medicine for this, and she said that she learned it from this person and they used to use it like this.
Oh, cool.
We use it in both ways. And then in my practice, what I discovered is that when I used it in this situation, it was also good as long as I paired it with a herb that does this, right?
Mm.
So it's generational, right? It's generational. So right? So Alva takes it back 3 generations, and if that person took it back 3 generations, and
Mm.
you know what I mean? Like that is our evidence, even though it's not in the same form,
Yeah.
right? And it's like just for us, it's unethical. It would be unethical to randomly give somebody a treatment and somebody not the treatment just to see what happened. That would be very bad. we
Isn't
would
that
not do
interesting?
that,
Mm.
right? So these randomized control trial things, it's like, yeah, you can keep that over there. We will not be doing
That
that,
violates my principles, actually. Like, yeah.
right? We will not be doing that here. So,
Wow.
I really just come at things from because I've been challenged. Like I've had to go with patients. Like I've gone with one of my patients, I had to go with her to see the oncologist. And because she went to the oncologist and she said, well, I'm going to use traditional medicine. And the oncologist said, well, if you're going to use that, then I can't help you. There's nothing I can do for you. Right.
Yeah.
And so she came in to see me with her husband. And her husband said, if I go back there and he says that again, I'm going to punch him. And I was like, no, 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 no.
Let's
Don't
not.
touch him. I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I will go with you.
Mm.
So I went with them to the second appointment. And what I did was I brought the CPSO guidelines on the use of alternative medicine, right?
Hmm.
And I just, he tried to get a little bit, pushy. And I said, actually, I'm going to stop you there. I said, I brought this document for you to look at. And I said, it very clearly states in there that it is the patient's choice.
Yeah.
It also clearly states that if they're using something that you do not understand, that you just need to communicate that.
Yeah. He doesn't have to take the full responsibility.
Yeah, you just say, well, that's wonderful. I'm glad you're using what you value. Just know that because I don't know it and I don't understand it, I can't make recommendations
Yeah.
as to yes or yay or nay, right?
Yeah.
I can still prescribe my own medicine. I can still do the CT scans. I can still do all of the things that are in my package, in my
Yeah.
and you can do what you're doing, right?
Mm.
And I remember he was like, and he just took the paper and he was like quiet and he got them set up with what they needed to be. I think she was going to start chemo. And then the next time she went back, she said he was not so short with her.
Mm.
No, it wasn't
Yeah.
that he was nasty. He was very, very short, right?
Yeah.
Said he was a lot more personable. And as it turned out, she didn't she only had one chemotherapy and she didn't want it. So she
Hmm.
ended up just using the traditional medicine. And I actually just ran into her the other day. She's like 10 years,
Mm.
10 years out since then, right?
Mm.
So yeah.
So
But
there
I
you
just
go.
haven't, yeah, and I haven't let it stop me, right? I haven't let it
Yeah.
stop me because I said, now we have the TRC, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls to action. And it clearly says in there that, and even the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, right? It says Indigenous people have a right to use their own medicine. And I'm like, that includes me as a physician,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
That
Why would
includes,
it not?
why would it not, right? And people are
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. All right, I guess.
Oh, that whole story, like I just picture the rows in the story or the ships and the canoes. You know what I mean? Like what I'm imagining is this oncologist, he's trained to think that he has to own the whole river and that
Yep.
he can't say you in your canoe do what you do because he thinks he has to know everything about that and be in charge of that and be the boss of that because that's like
Yeah.
supremacy culture, right? And and so you in advocating for your patient, like you are also, whether he thinks of that, you're liberating him from thinking that he needs to be in charge of this whole thing, which he never
Mm.
could be anyway. Let's be honest. He never. And so he gets to just sink right back into his ship and say, okay,
Yes.
it
Okay.
makes the job a lot easier, I will say.
The job's so much more freeing and easier, right? We don't have to control it all, right?
No,
And that's the colonized thinking as well,
it
right?
is.
So
Yes.
it's like we're, in walking in the bush and being shown that everybody needs the opportunity to decolonize
Yeah.
and get back to that being the other human in the room,
Yeah.
just to being who we are, right? That's what everybody needs.
Hmm.
So I ended up designing the curriculum and I entitled it Experiencing a Culture of Safety. And
Hmm.
it is a series of circles, which is and Indigenous pedagogy. Um, and in those circles, it's an unpacking of how colonization has impacted the people that are there. And I tell them that at the very first session, I tell them during this course, you will learn about, my people's history with colonization and how we're healing from that by picking up who we are
Mm.
so that you can do the same thing.
Yeah.
That's all this is. It's just we're going to tell you our story so that it can help you to reclaim your own story as well, right?
Yeah. Oh, that framing I think is it's so generous. And I imagine it would be really highly like effective and impactful at opening ears and minds to hearing. Because I do think it's a false story that if you're sitting there and you're hearing, witnessing someone else who has been oppressed and you're hearing their story, the goal is then for those who have been amongst the oppressors to simply feel shame and bad and be scolded or something, which is, I haven't actually ever experienced that. So it's its own little
Mhm.
mythology, but like um, the notion, just this notion that like, everyone gets to be liberated together. Like we need each other
Mhm.
in order to liberate ourselves and each other. And
Mhm.
that's why it matters. It's not like a political issue over there in the corner that if you means that you're on the good side and don't get
Mhm.
canceled or whatever. It's like not, it's like so not about any of that.
Mhm. Not about it at
It's
all.
like about self and mutual liberation,
Yeah,
actually.
exactly. I remember my friend sending me her on her email. She has a little quote, and I think it's Maya Angelou, and it says something about like, um, if your freedom or your liberation is not tied up in mine, then you're not my person or
Yeah.
whatever.
And really
We, we're,
questioning it then, right? Like,
yeah, we're in this
yeah.
together, right? If it's
Yeah.
not entangled, and it's like, oh, okay, I get that. I get that.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, as anticipated, I can't believe it's already past noon. I'm like,
I know,
what?
right? Yeah.
Okay. I want to honor your time and your day.
Mhm.
I'm curious, perhaps my last sort of bigger question is like, so in what ways are you embodying these teachings that you received in 2020 and the two row? Like, how is this looking then in your life these days? Any new experiments, if that word feels right to you, or like new embodiments of the two row way of being in your
Mhm.
personal life, in your clinical life, in your teaching life?
Yeah. The most interesting thing that happened is I was at my cousin's wedding. Um, where are we? Monday? So not last week, but the week before. My cousin got married in Portland, Oregon.
Mm,
And so I flew out for her wedding. And I had talked to her about the two row when she was here before, because her mother and my mother were sisters
mm.
and very close. I'm actually just finished writing a book about my mom that's hopefully going to be published within the next months.
Oh my
But
gosh.
but they didn't grow up here. Like her family, her mom went over to the States and married a Puerto Rican man. So my cousin is half Puerto Rican, half Mohawk, right? But both her mother and father were very much like, we just need to be like everybody else,
Mm, hmm.
right? Like they adopted that colonized framework, right?
Yeah.
And so she didn't have a lot of teachings. And so when she was here to visit me, I had given her the two row teaching, and because she's seen it, and she said, "Oh, what's that?" So I talked to her about it. She goes, "I love that." She goes, "I'd love to get one." She goes, is there a place I can get one?" I said, "Yeah, I can get you one." So she said, "Okay." So then when she was getting married, I thought, that's what I'll give her. I'll give her a two row for her wedding gift. So I actually bought this two row because I don't beat. And I thought I'll give it to her as a gift. So I fly down there and I get there and she says, "Oh, cousin, I forgot to tell you." She goes, "You're part of the ceremony." I said, "I am. What am I going to do?" She said, I want you to give that two row, I want you to give that two row wampum teaching as part of my ceremony."
Oh my
And I
gosh.
was like, "Oh my goodness." I said, "Oh, okay. I've never done that before, but I'll do it, right?" And so I showed her that I had brought them that as a gift, right? So we brought it, we put it up at the front, got it, did the rehearsal, got up there, and I did the teaching of the two row, like very, very brief. I think they gave me like 2 minutes on their wedding agenda. Um, but I talked to the two of them, her and her wife, and I talked to them about, this two row and how it represents both as individuals, even that
Mm,
is applied to them in
yeah.
this marriage relationship now, that they are traveling close now, side by side in this water of life, and that they each have a responsibility to themselves. And when they're able to do that, they're going to be able to live in a good way with each other as they're moving forward in their marriage. And then afterwards, they were talking to me about it. They were like, "Oh my God, that was so beautiful." And then she was saying to me, I said, "Whatever you do, don't put it in a frame. It's not, it's like a living thing, right?" So she said, "Well, we'll put it up on our mantle here." And I said, "Use it. If you guys
Mm,
have a difficult decision to make, take it out. Talk about the teaching.
wow.
Remind yourself what these principles are and where each of you are situated in this relationship. Then talk about what you need to decide. Talk about where you're going, because trust me, it will help you. It helps the entire Department of Family Medicine to move forward. I'm sure it will help you in your marriage. So that's one way that it's come into my life in, just in that way, and helping my cousin to really understand who she is as, as an Oglahoi woman, you know, and now
Mm.
that she's married and she's older than I am, she's no spring chicken, right? So yeah,
Oh,
I'm
the
grateful.
applications and yeah, what a beautiful um gift that it's just so funny how it all turned out where you didn't know you're gonna have to use the belts when you brought it, but there you
Yeah,
go.
yeah, because she had mentioned it before, but I didn't, people say things and you think, yeah, yeah, but you don't really take it seriously.
You didn't realize you'd like confirmed that you're literally part of the
Yeah, that
ceremony.
I'm you're part of the ceremony, and I was like, okay, all
Okay, good to
right.
know. Um, Wonderful. So, where can folks find you online if they want to listen to your podcast or connect with you?
Oh, yes. Okay. So my podcast is on Apple and on Spotify.
Yeah,
And then it's simply called Two Row Medicine.
wonderful. I'll make sure I find like a link to link people to
Yeah.
in the show notes as
Yeah.
well.
I'm not technically oriented. Like I just do the recording and I send it to Casey and he works the
Casey,
magic. Yeah.
great. It's great to have a Casey.
Great to have a Casey. Everybody needs Casey.
Um, all right. And then the last question I ask everyone is to consider those listening to the podcast. And, those that are drawn to the podcast are people who are noticing the lack of humanity or lack of space for their humanity in the way they've been taught medicine, whether they're still a trainee or if they've been in practice for a long time, including those that are not physicians, but also like work in the healthcare space. So, what would you want to offer to them in terms of wisdom or words of encouragement as they continue on this journey of reclaiming their humanity?
Mm. I guess the first thing that comes to my mind is that you're not alone. There's a lot of us out here that are feeling like that. And the more that we're able to talk about it and just be honest, right? Just
Yeah,
be honest with ourselves and what we're feeling in the spaces and places where we are. When we are kind and honest and genuine, it brings that out in the other people. No matter how, no matter how stuck the other person may seem,
yeah,
um, when we live our humanity, it just brings it out in the other people, in the people around us. That's what I learned walking in the bush. You got to be yourself.
yep,
Stop leaving that at the door. It's
yep.
what we need. It's what we all need, right?
Uh, Amen. I co-sign that 100%. And you feel, I don't know about you, but like it feels a lot better. Sometimes it can feel scary and vulnerable, of course,
Yeah.
but it's a lot less energy draining than constantly trying to be somebody else.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. It's very freeing.
Very freeing.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well,
Yep.
thank you for all of the time that
Yes,
you've
thank you.
offered.
Thank you for asking me to come.
Oh my gosh. I feel like I'd talk to you for a million more hours because there's so
I
much.
know, right? There's so much to talk about.
I really look forward to reading your book as well. Like, so, I mean, that's not out yet, but
No,
there
not
will
yet.
be, okay. I'll have to keep an eye out or hope.
It's finished.
Yeah.
I'm just in the stage of I found a reader who's going to do the reading and some of the major edits for me. Like, because
Okay.
I've already done 3 edits, right? So now I need to send it to somebody to do those final edits. I meet with my publisher next week. So I'm hoping that like early fall, it'll be ready to actually go to publishing and then be out.
Yeah. Do you know what it's going to be called or is the title not
I
fully?
don't know
Okay.
I don't, I named it something and the publisher was like, well, you might want to change, think about the title. And I was like, okay, I'll think about the title.
Okay. Still becoming. We
Yes.
title, we shall see. Well, I will definitely buy it as soon as it comes
Mhm.
out.
Okay.
Okay.
All
All
right.
right.
Sounds
So all
good.
those listening, I hope that you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did and really consider, yeah, what happens if you focus on your own ship and honor other people on their canoes and ships as well, and how that could be liberating for everyone.
Yes.
And with that, I hope everyone has a wonderful week, and we'll talk to you next week.
Ona.
Bye. I would love to take this work deeper with you. Visit joanchanmd.com today and discover my growing menu of options for restorative medical education to suit your learning needs. I offer one-on-one coaching, customized workshops, and self-study courses that allow you to connect not only with my work on a deeper level, but also with other healthcare humans just like you. So if you want to start humanizing your work in healthcare to a deeper level and do it in community with others, please visit joanchanmd.com and find those options and what fits you and your life today.